Welcome, everyone. We'll call this Board of Weber County Commissioners to order, held this 25th day of July, 2017 at 10 o'clock. I'm Commissioner James Ebert. In attendance with me today is Commissioner Gibson and Commissioner Harvey. We will have opening thought of the day will be by Commissioner Harvey. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Ryan Calley. We'll start with a moment of silence today. Just as a reminder, we have celebrated Pioneer Day yesterday. We had an opportunity to reflect on those who gave many times too often in their lives, made commitments to head west and to establish this great state of Utah. So for those who sacrificed so much, let's take a moment of silence today. Thank you. Mr. Calley, please lead us.
Please join with me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our thought of the day is by Mary Workley Montague, or I quote from Mary Workley Montague, while conscience is our friend, all is at peace. However, once it is offended, farewell to the tranquil mind. I just want to know if that meets with Quinn Fowler's approval.
Is that short enough? Are you timing it today? We good? Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. Commissioner Gibson.
Just wanted to make a quick reminder of the events coming up over the next month or so. If you haven't seen one of these, you should get one. This is the booklet about the Weber County Fair. I love the theme this year, Dancing with the Steers. That was a stroke of marketing genius, Jan, wherever she is. Jan H. Wilson, are you here? Right there. I think it's a fun little play on words. I don't know about y'all's children, but mine have been furiously washing and blowing and feeding and combing. And let me just say, these steers get much better hair care treatment than I do. Just saying. If I had that much treatment, maybe I'd have a little bit more on my head. But it's just a great thing, something for everyone. You'll hear a contract here in the next little while from Jan about an issue an event that I'll be participating in, and so we're excited to hear that. But it's a tremendous community celebration, and we hope that all of you find a way to participate. And the reason I say to get a book or go online is because you will see that there is something for absolutely everyone. I mean, even if you don't want to comb a steer's hair, you can do lots of other stuff. So,
And that was August
9th through the 12th, the Weber County Fair over at our awesome fairgrounds facility. So look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you. Some were thinking that they were having an opportunity to dance with the three commissioners, the steers, but that is not true. We will not be dancing. I just wanted to add August 10th through the 12th, we have a production at the Peary's Egyptian Theater of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And this is going to be an amazing production, and we truly encourage each of you to attend and then find someone to attend that with. We are fortunate to have an amazing crew, an amazing production team, and then we have our staff at the convention and the Peary's that will just do an amazing job, and we're super excited for the Ogden Musical Theater to start up again. So,
Commissioner, can I add
Yes,
one more
sir.
thing on another
Please.
topic? I thought it would be good to point out that last night at the rodeo, we had a local Weber County cowgirl who was named as the first runner-up to Miss Rodeo Utah. Savannah Steed has been a barrel racer and cowgirl all around here in the community for a long time. Participated actively in 4-H out at the fairgrounds and has been a 4-H ambassador, if I remember correctly, and just a tremendous young lady. I think that the Miss Rodeo Utah crown went to a gal from Lehigh, if I remember right, and we like them all, but we are always very proud of our local hometown girls and guys. And anyway, bottom line, I think that's a tremendous accomplishment in competition like that, when we get a local individual who performs so well on that very intense stage. And so it's been fun. It's been fun seeing these rodeo queens around town over the last little while, over the whole last month. You have a hard time walking anywhere without running into them. And of course, if you run into them, you have to take a picture with them because they're so cute. I've got a whole bunch of pictures with different boots because I like to wear boots, and of course they do. And so we've got some fun memories of this month. And I have decided to do more of the cowboy theme throughout the entire year from now on. So I hope you're all
I'm
okay.
gonna do
with
more
that.
of the golf polo thing. Is that no? Not so much. I need to be in a suit.
At least till the fair's over.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Gibson. We have some amazing, again, things coming up in August, events, so we hope you attend. We'll move on to item number E, presentation. Our recorder surveyor, Leanne Kiltz, has a presentation today. Leanne, please come up. While you're walking up here, we just want to remind those who are watching that we like to highlight once a month one of our elected offices or one of our departments to really help members of the community understand what we do in these offices and the tremendous amount of work, but as important, the tremendous employees and staff and the qualified people that work so diligently throughout the county. So Leanne, thank you for being here, and thank you for having so many members of your staff here today.
Yes, thank you for having us. When I took our office, I was trying, when I knew I had to do this presentation, I wanted to come up with some thoughts on what I wanted to do as an elected official and for my office. So I took the 6 B's into consideration. I wanted to be grateful, be smart, be clean, be true, be humble, and be prayerful. And so let me just tell you a little bit about my office before I fall apart. Anyway, the surveyor's office. We're such a unique office. We have 2 totally different entities here. We have the surveyors who try to preserve our monuments, our section corners, and work with the other departments. The one thing that the surveyor's office people don't realize is that we cannot do private surveys. We can only deal with the property that the county owns, but we are required to keep those monuments that are out there in our section corners available so that the private surveyors can find those corners, and because we don't like boundary disputes. No one likes boundary disputes, but we want to make sure those corners are well protected. On the recorder's office, we are in charge of preserving the documents on anything that has to do with the ground. The ownership. Could you imagine if we lost these records, what a nightmare it would be on who owned what property and which mortgage company, and if we put those documents in the wrong place, what a disaster it is. So it's a vital importance that the recorder's office have. So we're also preserving the documentation there. And in the recorder side, we also create the land serial numbers, which then each person is taxed for. And we want to make sure that we do that job right, because it is a nightmare when there is a problem and someone doesn't get the right tax notice to the right place. So we're in charge of addressing and keeping our land serial numbers current. As you realize, as commissioners, you can't run the whole county by yourselves. Well, I can't run my whole department by myself. So these people back here on the back row are part of my staff. And unfortunately, we couldn't bring them all down because there is recording that goes on a daily basis. So I do have some staff up there, but I want them to know what a wonderful staff I have. We've worked hard to create managers and take accountability for the work that we do, not only on the surveyor side, but on the recorder side. And we also took pride in working with the other offices, the planning commission, the engineerings. Without the recorder's office creating the numbers, the assessors have nothing to assess. The clerk auditors they don't have the taxing units and are unable to tax. So the recorder's office does have a vital, important part in Weber County. But we want to thank all those offices that we work with, the treasurer's office and the attorney's office. I'm very glad when I don't have to work with the attorney's office. No offense, Dave, but we like it when we don't have to deal with you. But they are such an asset when I do have a problem. So on behalf of the recorders and the surveyor's office, we're proud that we're working together with the other offices and working our best and doing our best. And I'm very proud of them. So thank you for this time for me to toot my horn in my office. They are awesome. And we have presented a name for you today for the award. So we appreciate you and all that Weber County does. And
Thank you.
thank you very much.
So don't be running off here.
Oh, don't be running off. Okay.
So I just wanted to say, in regards to Leanne, she's one of the kindest, most thoughtful people I know. She truly loves her staff, and she takes great pride in her job. She hates the limelight. It is seriously having to twist her arm to get her to come up here and to stay, but that shows the type of the person that she is. And I would let her staff know that she truly cares about you and she truly looks out for your best interest, and she wants to make sure that her office is meeting every single need that the community has, and she's assembled a staff to do that. And so to Leanne, the commission wants to say thank you very much for your attention, for your dedication, and for the manner in which you run your office and care about your people. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have created the Stall of Fame so that each elected official or department head can try the best they can to let their staff know. We can only give one of them, and so that causes a little bit of discontent sometimes within that person has to figure out who that is. But we want staff to know how important they are to us, and we want to recognize the great work that's being done. And Commissioner Harvey kindly dedicated his stall to do that, and just this little bit we can do here and there, we hope the staff and employees understand how much we appreciate them. So Commissioner Harvey, would you finish us out here?
Thank you. To you folks there on the back row,
Are they the back row kind?
there are
There.
you especially have made coming to this building awesome. I love the smiles and the waves and the teeth and just the genuine warmth that comes from your office. But I realize that you can't project that without how you feel. And I know that it takes a great leader to create the environment to feel that way. I've been watching your department for nearly a quarter of a century. And I love what you folks are representing today. And I congratulate all of you. So to all of you, if all of you in the crowd would join me in giving a little round of applause to that little group back there. I know this is incredibly difficult for Leanne to pick just one, because there are many, many folks that deserve recognition. And really what I'd like to do is have Leanne come back and teach a 20-minute thesis on how to select. I'm just teasing. She hates speaking in front of people. Oh my gosh. Asking her to speak in front of people is, we should have got that on video because it was so funny. But, Bahi, we want you to come forward. Bahi Ramizadagan. I said that pretty good, didn't I?
Pretty close.
Came to the recorder's office.
He's not going to argue with you. You're giving him an award.
You can argue all you want. I learned to speak Ghana from Commissioner Ebert. and I know that's not a common name, but I'm going to leave it there. There's another inside joke there. But Bahi came to us in July of 2015 as a surveyor. I've personally been able to watch him and his works and how proficient he is. He has laid out, many of you don't know, but he has laid out the most accurate quarter horse racing track that exists in the United States.
Down to a quarter inch? What
I think
An inch,
it's
half
down to a quarter of an inch, isn't it? Excuse me, an eighth of an inch.
Come on, you're not even trying. If you're down to a quarter, you're not even
Really
trying.
disappointed. I'm
Need to
sorry
get
about
him to plant corn for me.
He helps everyone. He's well educated. He's friendly. He's courteous. He gets back to you. He does what he says he's going to do when he says he's going to do it. And we're honored and proud to present the Stall of Fame to you this month, Bahi. Anything you'd like to say?
Thank you. And like she says, more departments come try and use the survey department.
Thank
We're
you.
here to help.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I know that, Quinn Powers, our new IT guy, kind of teased me about my oration on leadership a couple weeks ago. Just kidding you, Quinn. I'm having fun with you. But I think it's interesting how several of there's a lot of different ways to lead, right? And all of them are, a lot of them are good, some better than others. But what I've seen is that a lot of these individuals lead in their own way, and it's not just Leanne that does that. I think Bahi, is that yeah, right? It's obvious that you have a way about you that qualifies you for leadership, or you wouldn't be having this opportunity today. Leanne, she obviously talks about her weakness, but she's got a ton of strengths in that area too. Let me explain to you something that happened to me just the other day. I had a question that I wasn't sure was even a question for her. In fact, to be honest, I went over looking for the surveyor because I thought it was more of a surveyor thing. She grabs the document I had, looks at the document, and starts doing this with the right hand. And I noticed that it was on the keypad, not on the computer, but on the numbers. And the next thing I know, voila, up pops this thing on her computer that was exactly what I needed. She printed it for me. It took her about 0.3 seconds. And then she not only did that, but explained to me very well what the concerns were with what I brought up. And I just think that is so cool. And there is someone who is so good at what they do. And I don't know. Just looking at the back row, do you respect that? Yes. I think we do. And that's leadership in a really positive way. So to use my story from before, you don't have to be General Hancock trotting across the top of the hill with the saddle horn getting blown off into your leg. You can be, and that's another good example of inspiration and leadership, but they come in a ton of different ways. And Leanne and Bahi, and I think all of you deserve recognition for leading in your own way, and you only do that when you are driven to be excellent and
Right.
super good at what you do, and I really enjoyed watching that as well. So I just want to tell you all thank you and how much I appreciate the work that you do.
Leanne is great. She's probably the best person I worked for.
Oh, you already got there.
Thank you. Can we give them a round of applause one more time? Wonderful. We'll move to consent items under F. Number 1, request for approval of warrants 418852 to 419197 and 1135 through 1143 in the amount of $3,951,919.36. Item number 2, request for approval of purchase orders in the amount of $159,056.28. And item number 3, request for approval of new business licenses. Commissioners, any questions or concerns about those 3 items? Seeing none, Lynn, would you like to maybe go over our warrants and our POs?
Yes, thank you. The purchase orders, the top dollar items, 40% of that went to the library for a wireless network, wired and wireless network hardware. That was about $64,400. And then we had To the GIS for ESRI maintenance renewal, the mapping software, about 27,000 or 17%. And we also had vaccines for the health department, 9% or about 14.7 thousand. And then IT had about 7% of that go for Oracle WebLogic Suite. That was about 10.8 thousand. And then under the warrants, largest portion went to capital improvements for construction projects, 28% or 1.1 million. Then we also had medical insurance payments, 637,000 or 16%. Ramp tax appropriations to other agencies, about 510,000 or 13%. And finally, building improvements for dispatch, local build authority, about 10% or 410,000. Those are the top items. Everything else on there was less than 5% spread around.
Thank you very much, sir. Questions or concerns, commissioners, about POs or warrants? Seeing none, I'm open to a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve the consent items as read. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes. Moving to G, action items. Item number 1, request for approval of poll workers for the 2017 municipal primary election. Mr. Ryan Cowley. Ryan. Good morning.
Good morning. So we have before you a tentative list of the poll workers for the primary election. There is not a county question on here, but we just felt where we're contracting with each of the cities to do the primary elections and following a vote center model, that would be best to have the county legislative body approve our poll workers. So with that, I ask you to approve our tentative list of poll workers.
Okay, we have the list of the poll workers. How many are here? Are about 20? There's a pretty good number here. Are there any questions, thoughts, or concerns, commissioners, about the names on this list? I'm happy to have names on the list. Number 1. Seeing none, I'm open for a motion to approve the list of poll workers for the 2017 municipal primary election.
So moved.
It's been
Second.
moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan, and thank you to those who are willing to work in these elections. They're a dying breed, unfortunately, these days, and I hope that we continue to have more. Item number 2, request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and the Flying Cortez, a flying trapeze show at the 2017 Weber County Fair. And Commissioner Gibson volunteered to be one of these flying trapezes, I believe, in our earlier meeting.
This is the one.
Jan Wilson.
This is
It's
it.
because they saw me do the splits with Waldo.
They saw you do half a split. I'm going to insist on it was half a split.
Okay, whatever it was impressive.
It was impressive.
It was impressive. The most impressive part was that he couldn't get up, but
He could have if his pants were on fire.
The cheerleaders pulled me up. I was fine.
Jan.
oh, commissioners, as you all know, our parrot show that we had contracted with has now canceled. The gentleman has got a full-time show down in Las Vegas, and so our agent that we'd been working with scrambled and has got us a trapeze show that will take its place. The parrot show was $5,000. This is going to be $6,000, but we needed a show. It is still within our budget, and so I am here to ask for your approval of this contract between Weber County and the Flying Cortez, the Flying Trapeze Show.
Awesome, thank you. I know Leanne had volunteered to bring her staff to do the trapeze act if we needed
Yes.
to. And the high wire walking,
Uh-huh.
right?
Or at least,
We had a beard growing contest, so he got an early start. Commissioners.
just a question, so that folks will know where to come and see the trapeze. Where will that be set at the fair?
It will be right next to the horse track that is 1/8 of an inch off.
Off.
Up to.
Two.
Oh,
Up to.
accurate. Oh, up
It's accurate
to.
to.
Sorry, wrong verbiage.
The way you said
Sorry,
it made it sound like it was a negative instead of an
No,
amazing
sorry,
positive.
positive.
We're a half full commission. not a half
Okay, it
empty.
is just west of the racetrack. It'll be south of the grandstand on a piece of grass by the exhibit hall.
Wow.
Now, if any of you are lost, just contact the recorder surveyor. They can show you where
They can locate that section corner.
Thank you very much, Jan. Any questions, thoughts, or concerns? Any other comments?
None. I would move, with that, I'd move for approval of that contract between Weber County and Flying Cortez.
what that is.
It's been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, commissioners? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes. Thank you very
Thank
much. Item number 3, request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and PGCC Strategies, LLC for external state and local government relations service. I'll be presenting this today. Commissioner Harvey or Gibson, feel free to jump in. One of the areas that we have really designated a tremendous focus is economic and community development. Within economic development, creating a team that can have not only local reach, but also have statewide, national, and international reach. And this group has very specific abilities that will allow us to start this process of attracting businesses and creating a community that businesses want to relocate into. And so we're extremely excited to take this next step in economic development, to create more of a team around our present economic development director, Doug Larson, to give him the tools that he needs to continue to drive economic development forward. And we believe that this is a great opportunity to do that. Commissioner Harvey or Commissioner Gibson.
Go ahead.
This is a group that has made presentations to the commission. Their contacts are, we feel, are invaluable, especially as it pertains to the state of Utah, and more to have more opportunity for discussion down there. And I think it would, I personally think it would be a good experience for Weber County.
Commissioner Gibson.
I have a couple of questions, comments, and thoughts. First of all, is the contract in its form? Are there any amendments or changes that need to be made to the contract?
There will be a small amendment at the very end of the contract on the individual that is the specific contact. That will be one of the special service providers, Abby Osborne, and I do have the information to make that small correction.
So that would just be a name change and
Correct.
And an address change.
address change.
Yes, sir.
Under contractor. Okay. So I've got a lot of questions about this. Maybe Commissioner Ebert, you can answer a few of them. First of all, I had heard that there was an amendment made or a budget line item placed for this last Tuesday after I left to do TV county seat TV filming. Is that true?
Correct. So under our budget adjustments that we do quarterly, we added about $100,000 out of the general fund to help fund this, to move this forward. We had actually had $100,000 set aside earlier, but I believe we used that in another area, not specific to economic development, that we felt a priority. And so we created, we moved money out of the general fund to backfill that $100,000 we had used for another position, another contract actually.
So this is not replacing any current funding that's in place. This is a new funding stream, a new appropriation.
Correct.
So do you anticipate this replacing any other of our economic development contracts that are currently in place, or may not be in place anymore? Or
I don't think we have any other contracts right now for economic development.
So what
I
would
think we had $100,000 in staffing.
Okay, so what would happen to that that funding that was funding those other contracts at that?
We don't have any other contracts right now in economic development.
Okay, but we did, right? Didn't we have a couple of others?
Not that I'm aware of. The only other outstanding contracts we had were in our poverty initiatives with IGP for an IGP manager, and then we had a contract out for how would I say this? We had 2 contracts in our health department. One was for an IGP manager, and the other one was for social impact and pay for performance, trying to find those dollars to help pay for those projects. Those were both in the health department under the poverty initiative. You may be thinking of one of those.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, none of those were under
I
economic
forgot.
development. However,
Because the contract specified some economic development, that's why I was confused, I'm sorry.
yeah, I think we had stripped all that out. But moving forward, I don't anticipate those dollars being expensed for the pay for performance at this time. We still need to replace our IGP manager. I think that's something that the Welfare Reform Commission will be looking at here fairly quickly. So there may be some dollars under the social impact and the pay for performance. But that then does leave us a little short on finding ways to help pay for our poverty initiatives. But we can work our way through that.
So, what was the process in which this group was identified and chosen?
So, Dave, could you touch on that quickly, how we classified this contract?
The contract, when we looked at it, when Brian looked at it first with Brianna, and we determined that it was a sole source because of the expertise of the providers and professional services. We determined that it could be a sole source contract, so there's not an RFP issued on this one. Other than that, I don't know how the selection process was made.
Yeah, so we were looking for a very specific need. I think at a state level, specifically, we felt very strongly that when leads or businesses were coming into the state, we had no representation. In fact, I had a great conversation with another gentleman who's done a tremendous amount of work in the state of Utah, Randy Samt, and he talked about several businesses, leads that had come in, and how he had sat around the table with a very select few and looking at where those businesses could go, and we never had an opportunity. And so we were looking for a very specific attribute, so to speak, in our economic development, and felt very strongly that it was one of the missing factors that we presently had. The contract lays out some more in data and creating a more data-driven process and doing a tremendous amount of outreach into those businesses. And the specific individuals really we felt strongly that they had the connections and the attributes to do that.
So I think I agree with a lot of that. I know one of the 2 that are listed here as a contract, or what do you call it? As a party to the on the other side of the contract, and I have great respect, and I think that she is outstanding at what she does. I also have great respect for the people who have recommended them. I will admit I have a little bit of concern. I want to be as straightforward and transparent as possible. We went through a process not too long ago with consulting contrary, a marketing contract that was very, very thorough, very detailed, lots and lots of discussion and measurables. I just want to make sure that we've had we have had some other economic development contracts that I haven't felt quite as comfortable with, and I just want to make sure that as we enter into a new one, that we do it appropriately that we're very comfortable with what we're getting. I'm looking through the contract that I'm seeing today for the first time. It feels like it's fairly good, but I would love to see more specific measurables. I know sometimes we don't always know what we want up front. We have a broader picture of what we want to see, and it's hard to put those specifics into place. But nonetheless, I would like to see a little bit more of that in the future. That being said, I think that this is a need that we have, and I guess my main concern is making sure that it's done appropriately and overseen appropriately, and so on and so forth. I also am a little concerned about. It feels like our economic development efforts have been a little bit splintered, and I don't think we can afford to do that. I would love to see us focus and have maybe a brainstorming session with our economic development director as to how we should go forward on something like this, because the problem that I continue to see is we have so much need in our economic development division, and we only have so much money, right? A small amount of money, and so the question then becomes, how do we most effectively use that small resource to get the biggest bang for our buck? And I'm not really sure what that is, but I'm a little concerned that this may be another stab in the dark without having really a real vision of exactly where we want to be, at least not from the way that it's laid out in the contract. I'm not seeing that. So those are my basic concerns. I guess I'll just leave it at that. If there's any of that can be answered, great. If not, that's fine. But I just think we have so much opportunity here with our economic development. We have so much ability, and I just want to see us all on the same page as much as possible, with our professional staff, with our elected officials, with our consultants, and I think we can probably improve in that in the future, and hopefully that can start soon today. So those are my thoughts.
Mr. Chair, ma'am. Commissioner Harvey. With regards to what Commissioner Gibson said, I think with regards to economic development, there are some big decisions that are made with regards to funding taxpayer funding, or excuse me, with regards to our approving of taxpayer funding. But the whole idea of economic development is if money is invested, then there is a return on that investment. And oftentimes those measurables can be difficult to capture, all of those measurables. So I hear what you're saying, and I think they're on. I respect all the efforts that our current economic development director is doing, and look forward to getting him a little help so that we can do a 1 + 1 = 3, or a synergistic approach to that. And so I feel like because of the talents of this particular organization, that this would be a great avenue for Weber County to move forward and be a leader in this northern Utah area, especially amongst all of our 15 city partners in this economic development part.
Thank you, Commissioner Gibson.
Did you want it? Sorry.
No, I just heard a big breathe in, so I figured you needed to exhale it out.
No, it's fine. I agree that very well may be the case, Commissioner. This is a great, I mean, especially and Abby's the one that I know, Abby Osborne, and I know that she's excellent at what she does. She's very connected, works with the Salt Lake Chamber, does a tremendous job. I guess my biggest concern is that I don't think that we have vetted this fully with our internal economic development experts. I would like to see us have more discussion with them before we move forward as to how this should look. We funded, as Commissioner Ebert mentioned, a position earlier on in the year, or during the budget cycle. We funded a position there, made some changes around that, but basically, I'm not sure that our staff feels that they have the tools that they need to do what they need to do economically, and it's our job to provide leadership, but it's also, I think, part of that is to work with our economic development department and allow them to help us to understand what they really need. And where we have such a limited amount of money, I think that I would be much more comfortable with this if I felt like they were comfortable as well that this is what we needed. And so, that's my challenge, my concern. I don't know if that's the case because I don't know that conversation's been had with them.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Harvey.
I know that I've had the privilege on a couple of different times, more than a couple of times, sitting down with him and getting the explanation on the contract and the homework done. Have you not had that opportunity yet, Commissioner?
With who?
I've sat down with the principals of this particular contract and met with them.
I'm concerned about our economic staff and whether or not they feel comfortable with it. Our economic development staff, that's what I was referring to.
Mm.
Because, as I said, I'm comfortable with the principals in this group. Don't let any of that be a question. What I'm concerned about is we have a small amount of money to spend. Where's it going, and is it really giving us the best bang for our buck? And I think that's a discussion that we probably shouldn't be having without our economic development team feeling very comfortable about that as well. That's the concern. I would prefer, and as far as the contract is concerned, if I had an opportunity to make changes, there's probably some things that I would add as far as accountability and measurables. But again, I guess my biggest concerns right now are with the limited money that we have, are we really getting what we need? Are we really getting what we need going forward? And I think that's a discussion that for me needs a little bit more time to develop with our professionals before I'm completely comfortable with this. So those are my thoughts.
Any further discussion, Commissioner Harvey? Okay, I'm open for a motion.
I will make a motion that we approve the contract between Weber County and PGCC Strategies, LLC, for external state and local government relations services, with the caveat that we make the changes with regards to the contact and the addresses as was aforementioned.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Would you be willing to hold off on this, Commissioner, while we have a discussion with our economic development folks and see how they feel about it?
So I have a motion.
I'd just as soon get going on it, but
It's just a question.
Do I have a second? So I will second the motion. Do we have any further discussion on the topic, on the motion? Okay, seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Aye. 2-1, it passes. Thank you very much. And I appreciate the open dialogue and the communications. I hope that, again, shows a tremendous amount of fidelity to this process. The decisions aren't made behind closed doors, that we do have discussion here in the public, and we do vet all of these discussions where everyone can see and hear them. And a tremendous amount of respect for both Commissioner Harvey and Commissioner Gibson's principles and for their willingness to have the discussion in open forum. So thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item number H, which is a public hearing. I'm open for a motion to adjourn our public meeting and convene a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It passes. Okay, we're in a public hearing for discussion and/or decision regarding a proposal to amend the subdivision ordinance Title 106 to add a letter of credit as an additional subdivision completion financial guarantee, ZTA 2017-10. Mr. Scott Park / Charlie Ewart.
Sorry, I'm not as attractive as Scott is.
I wouldn't know. I don't make that determination. Mr. Ewart, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. So we've been working with the Planning Commission on updating the county code as it relates to financial guarantees. Just to kind of lay out the elementary understanding of financial guarantees, there's a lot of requirements in county code under our land use code for zoning. Oftentimes, decisions come to the Planning Commission, to the zoning authority, or even to the county commission for approval. But there's still things that need to happen after that approval occurs. Approval is the easiest way to gain compliance with the code, but there's a question on how do we ensure compliance after we've already given approval. The specific question that we're dealing with here is in regards to subdivisions. State code lays out a couple of allowances for the county. If a subdivision is approved, the developer can go ahead and start construction without laying down any kind of financial guarantee for his or her performance. But the thing that guarantees the performance of that subdivision is constructed the right way is the county can withhold recording of the plat. So that's one of the ways that we do it. We withhold the recording of the plat, developer goes out and installs all the improvements. Once it's done to the county's satisfaction, we record the plat. If we withhold the recording of the plat, the developer cannot start selling lots. And so there's a revenue loss at that point until after all the improvements are installed. And for that reason, the county also allows the developer to come in and file with the county an escrow, cash escrow. So the developer will calculate the total cost of what it takes to install all the improvements for his or her subdivision and file it with the county. The county will hold that money. We'll record the plat. They'll go out, they'll install all the improvements. They're able to sell lots because the plat has been recorded. They've got revenue coming in. They're also paying to install those improvements. And in that case, the county is holding a cash escrow. So the county has taken the opportunity to take advantage of those two possibilities. Install the improvements and withhold the plat, or file a cash escrow and go ahead and record the plat and start moving. A lot of other jurisdictions allow more than just cash escrow. Excuse me. So today, a developer comes in and brings in cash money for 110% of the full amount of
110%.
110%, the full amount of improvements. When I started my career in this field about 10 years ago, I started right at the beginning, right at the height of the housing bubble. And a lot of jurisdictions weren't too concerned at that point because there hadn't been a lot of defaults on a developer's obligation. They weren't really concerned about the way that they're holding that financial security. In times of a good market, developers tend to find it in their best interest to execute on their obligations and perform well. When the bubble burst and the housing market crashed, a lot of developers circled their wagons and tried to figure out how to maintain the highest amount of, or essentially maintain the money that they have, considering they're not getting the revenue of selling lots. A lot of developers went bust. A lot of developments defaulted. At that time, Weber County, for whatever reason, said we're not going to go with any of these other alternative forms of financial guarantee. We're only going to do cash escrow. You bring the county the money, so we know that we have the money.
Well, and I think, Charlie, we had talked about this earlier. I think that it was limiting the county's exposure to risk.
Right.
In having to eventually, because the developer was not putting in the infrastructure, the county had to.
Right.
And I understand the reasoning behind it. I think this actually is an opportunity to still really reduce or eliminate much of that risk, but still be developer friendly.
Correct.
Friendly.
Yeah. So at that time, there was a big, I think, overreaction to the way that the market tanked, and jurisdictions started pulling back on some of these other financial guarantee types. There are some of the more popular financial guarantees is a surety bond. A surety bond acts a lot like an insurance policy. Developer pays a premium, and a surety company holds a certain amount in preparation for the event that the developer may default. A letter of credit, and that's the subject of the question here, is when the developer goes to a financial institution, puts forth whatever securities and equity is necessary to get that financial institution to tell them that they'll essentially back a credit for that developer. And then obviously there's escrow. And escrow can be held in cash by the county. It can be held in a reserve account by a financial institution. And so the question at hand is whether or not we open the county's code back up to allow letters of credit. One thing that in our analysis, one thing that we wanted to make sure is to do that risk analysis and find out how exactly we can best defend and protect the county in the event that a development defaults. The issue with a letter of credit is only an issue if the developer defaults and the bank essentially busts. We had a couple of banks in the area, and the nation had a couple of banks or a handful of banks that collapsed during the recession. And when a bank collapses and we're holding a letter of credit or anything else, FDIC only goes so far until FDIC doesn't cover those funds. So in my own career, I've dealt with sureties, I've dealt with letters of credit, I've dealt with cash escrow. And letter of credit is only risky to the extent that the financial institution may end up going bust in the future. What we wanted to do as we opened this opportunity up to developers is protect from that risk. And so what we did in writing into the letter of credit code that you have proposed in front of you is we wanted to limit it to the type of developer and to the type of financial institution. The type of developer, what was proposed to the Planning Commission, the type of developer would be a developer that already has good performance within Weber County. And the type of financial institution is one that the County Commission, the County Treasurer, and the County Attorney are all comfortable with, and the County Treasurer has his methods of verifying that the financial institution can perform. When the proposal went to the Planning Commission said, you know, maybe we don't want to be so restrictive that we're only opening the opportunity for a letter of credit to developers with positive performance in Weber County. So what you have in front of you from the Planning Commission is any developer who has any kind of track record of positive performance can come into Weber County, demonstrate that positive performance, file a letter of credit with a financial institution that the Commission, the Treasurer, and the Attorney's Office says that they're comfortable with, and then be on their way, execute their plat, start their development. And looking over the staff report, you'll see that when the Planning Commission made their recommendation, they removed the words you see on the screen with Weber County and in Weber County. One of the challenges with the way that they modified that is it's going to be nearly impossible for us to verify that a developer has a history of positive performance anywhere. if it's not in Weber County. More specifically, a developer may be able to provide demonstration that they have positive performance in a jurisdiction, but we won't know whether or not they have negative performance in any other jurisdiction. So with that in mind, what I've done is I've just reconstructed that paragraph to ensure, see if I can get some of that glare off, to ensure that the question that we're actually asking a developer who's done work outside of Weber County and wants to use that as a demonstration that that they will make good on their obligations, they'll need to demonstrate to the county with other jurisdictions that they have a history of positive performance with no incidences of negative performance.
Thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome.
If I could lead out a little bit, we've spent some time talking about this. I understand the concern from the developers because there's a certain percentage that goes into the infrastructure costs when they have to, pull these dollars out early. Specifically for me, I like having the Weber County in there. And the reason I like having Weber County in there is I want to provide an incentive for development within Weber County by those developers that are positive, that are forward-thinking, that are invested in the community. We are in no way, by not allowing them to use the line of credit, stopping them or inhibiting them from developing, because that's the process we have today. What we are doing is providing incentive for those developers that are in Weber County, that are community members, that are investing in our community over and over again, and have been positive with an opportunity to pull a line of credit. And then that is protected by the financial institutions that are on the list. So I think it does reduce the risk. So me personally, I would like to leave the Weber County in there as an incentive to strengthen development within our county. Commissioners.
I'll speak to that. I love the idea of having developers within Weber County incentivized, but I also like the idea of bringing additional funds from outside of Weber County into Weber County as well. Because I think competition can be good. It keeps things healthy. I'm incredibly, there are certain developers that I'm incredibly impressed with, and they're here, and they've been doing business for decades upon decades because they are good at what they do, and they've done what they said they're going to do when they said they're going to do it. And history has a way of eliminating the problem or the problem developers. And so I like that you've added statewide. I don't know that I completely understand, though, all the ramifications to that, Charlie, and probably need a little more explanation on that.
Happy to do so. When we're talking about a developer within Weber County, as Commissioner Eber pointed out, in order to be a developer in Weber County, all you have to do is execute a development successfully. It may only be one subdivision, may only be one phase of a subdivision. We could be as light or as heavy as we need to be, and there's some discretion built into
that. Then, sorry to interrupt, Charlie, if I may, but that makes any person who has a considerable mass of land that's available to be able to develop into lots, he could become a developer, even a one-shot guy.
Right. That's exactly right. And to some effect, we're all developers as we invest in land. So the idea is we know that there's positive performance from someone who's already executed a development in Weber County using the cash escrow. So it's almost like, think of it like a credit report. When you're going to get credit from a financial institution, if you've got a little bit of history of positive performance and a lot of history of negative performance, your number's going to be low. If you got a lot of history of positive performance, your number's going to be high. But the creditors have a way of verifying that through the credit companies. Weber County doesn't. And so the way that we can verify that is if you've got a history of performance in Weber County and it's good, we'll go ahead and allow you to use a letter of credit.
What happens though, Charlie, if you don't have a history and you, does this, I don't want to be unfair to the guy that wants to be a developer in his life. He's grown up and
Yeah.
now he wants to be a developer and he's got a little bit of money and maybe a little bit of land that he's somehow acquired. Does it prevent a guy from jumping into the business if he's got no experience? First-time guy?
Not at all. He still has two options available to him. That developer can go and choose to install the improvements before we record the plat. So we hold up recordation of the plat, and he can just go ahead and install the
He's
improvements.
got to have a lot of money then.
Yeah, potentially, but when it comes to a lot of money, it's going to be a construction loan, oftentimes. So I mean, a developer may come to the table with a lot of money in their bank account already, and they're just using their money as cash escrow. But most developers don't do that. Instead of going to the bank and getting a letter of credit, if they can't, they'll go to the bank and they'll get a construction loan, and then they'll leverage that construction loan with the county as the cash escrow. And then as they're installing improvements, they'll come to the county and they'll ask for releases of the cash escrow that they have. The trouble spot is with a letter of credit, the developer is not paying interest on any of that money until they've installed the improvements, come to the county and ask for the county to release them from that financial obligation. And then that goes to the bank, and the bank says, okay, we're going to write you a check. This is your debt obligation. And at that point, that developer is paying interest on that debt obligation. Whereas with a construction loan that's all up front, he starts paying interest from the very beginning. So that's the question. And when I say look at this like a credit score, if you don't have a history of positive performance, you're going to be paying a little bit more in interest. That's kind of what we're talking about here.
And this discussion really is that we're talking about is do we provide this opportunity to those who have a positive development score just in county or all the way throughout the state? I think that's, it's kind of a minor point one way or the other. I do know that I like to really incentivize continued investment within our community. And we do have very strong community members who have done that year after year after year and haven't left and haven't moved to Salt Lake or to Oakland or to San Francisco. I mean, they're continually investing into our community. That being said, I do see the importance of creating a business-friendly environment that would alleviate any barriers that are out there today for them to invest in our community. So I'm not, this isn't a line in the sand for me. I'm happy to extend it outside the county also. However, I do know that, again, we want to incentivize investment here in our county as much as we can.
Whatever incentivized investment here in the county would be a wise thing as far as I'm concerned for us to move forward.
Commissioner Gibson.
Well, remember that here, we only have, this ordinance would only be for the unincorporated area. But still, I think that's it's a step, right? I mean, we can't control what Ogden or another city might do, but there is opportunity, I think, in the unincorporated area, whether it's out west or in the Ogden Valley. There's a lot going on, and I think if nothing else, as a commission, we have the opportunity to show leadership and kind of set an example on something like this if it makes sense. Back to some of my comments of the last item. I'm really interested. I just have tremendous respect for our planning staff, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Rick, but do you have an opinion here as far as, now again, I know that's a scary question. I don't mean for you to tell me what we should do, but what are your thoughts as to whether or not this would have its desired effect? I guess that's maybe the best way to ask it.
I think it's important to give developers options. We need to look at ways in which we can incentivize development. It's a huge cost for them in the beginning, but there's a liability too that we have as a county and a responsibility. And that's where, as staff, we've been weighing that out. As Charlie indicated, most municipalities do have other options. I can see where we changed because we had some problems there. I do like the ability to allow some flexibility. And as Charlie indicated, it is a little bit difficult of tracking a developer's history when they're not located in the county, but it can be done. We can reach out to other municipalities and find out how their history was in those areas. So there's ways in which we can accomplish that. I just think it's important as a county to be progressive and look at ways in which we can help a developer, and a letter of credit is one of those options that can help them. But being able to have some conditions associated with it, I think before you there are those conditions that help. Most counties that we looked at, they don't have conditions associated with a letter of credit or third-party escrows. It's just they just allow them, and so I think it's very proactive to have conditions associated with it to protect the county.
I appreciate that, because it's as I said, it's a dangerous thing when a commissioner says, "What do you think?" Because I don't want to put you in a position of making a policy decision that's our duty. But I do, from a technical perspective, appreciate what your recommendations are tremendously, and I think you summed it up well for me. And it kind of goes back to this fundamental belief and this fundamental argument that we can generally get a better behavior with incentive than we do with requirement and compulsion, and in this particular case, it seems like this is fairly well thought out and makes sense from am I stating that correctly, from an administrative perspective?
Yes,
you
are.
It's okay.
And the conditions that the Planning Commission put on there, I think staff, we could go either way on it. We just feel that there needs to be something to hold their feet somewhat to the fire, but still give them that flexibility.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have some time available for public comment.
By the way, before you do that, I just want to compliment these guys. Usually they get up and leave right after the award, and they've stayed for a whole hour. So you get, I think we should give them the parking spot for an extra day.
He's auctioning them for $5 a day. Is there anyone that has come today to address this in public? Okay, no public comment at all. Okay.
It's an exciting topic.
It is an exciting topic. Okay, commissioners, here on the agenda, I'll accept the motion to exit our public hearing and enter back into our public meeting.
So moved.
So moved. Or I mean,
and seconded. Moved and double moved and then seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're back into our public meeting. Any action on the public hearing? Open for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we amend the subdivision ordinance Title 106 to add a letter of credit as an additional subdivision completion financial guarantee.
That'll be ordinance 27.
Ordinance number 27.
Commissioner, we have a question concerning the language specific to in Weber County or extending it out of Weber County. How would you like to address that in your motion? Is that correct, Charlie?
mm-hmm.
So really, we're seeing three different options.
How's it written?
Planning staff recommended to the county commission in Weber County. Planning commission recommended, or excuse me, planning staff recommended to the planning commission. Planning commission recommended that to the county commission to remove the words in Weber County. Currently, we're recommending, if you remove the words in Weber County, that we add in just a little bit more language that you see at the end of your staff report. Fourth page in. One more time, fifth page in.
Okay, let me just think this through real quick. When you say in Weber County, are you saying that they would be headquartered here?
No. They have a history of positive performance doing developments in Weber County. They could be any developer outside of Weber County, but they've already have to have to have established a history here.
Lane Construction, who maybe built the Juvenile Justice Center, has a positive history within Weber County. They could be subject to this.
Right.
Honestly, I could go either way on that. I think that's probably the conundrum that we've seen already through the Planning Commission. Commissioners, any thoughts on that?
No, I like the idea of adding back in the state of Utah instead of just striking the language completely.
So just back to the staff's second recommendation. Okay. So we have a motion altering the language under 106-4-V A2 under staff recommendation B that adds the state of Utah and strikes Weber County. Is that correct, Commissioner Gibson?
Yes.
Okay.
With that motion, then, with the state of Utah being added to that, I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Fatima, roll call.
Commissioner Gibson.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
And Chair Ebert.
Aye. It passes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Ewert. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to enter to a closed meeting to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Commissioner Gibson.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Chair Ebert.
Aye. Okay, we are in public. We're going to be in a closed session. We'll return after the closed session if you'd like to stay around. You will hear if there's any action to be taken from that closed session. Thank you very much if you are leaving today for your attendance, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Are you saying wait? Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Motion to.
Second.
We have a motion to end our closed meeting, enter back into our public meeting.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any action on the closed meeting?
There was a motion to delay or to get further information on the closed meeting.
Okay, I'll entertain. Is there anyone here for public input? Please state your name and where you live.
Lori Brinkerhoff, 6205 West, 4700 South, Hooper, Utah. First of all, just really short comment. Appreciate all that you do. Great success with all the events going on. But my I guess request is in regards to Hooper Tomato Days. As we're getting ready for our upcoming event, Public Works and our they've notified us that we do not have access to convicts as we did in years past and coming out in helping us make preparations for our rodeo grounds. Is there any way we could visit that with our limited resources, limited staff?
Yes, sorry. Yes, we could visit about that, absolutely.
Okay. They have asked that I just raise the concern, and that would be a huge benefit to Hooper City if we had access to at least 4 to 8 of the different inmates come out and help us make that preparation.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion?
Leanne, did you want to come back to this?
Leanne, there's nobody here. This is the perfect time to
Could we get that 20-minute?
I'll entertain a motion
So
to
moved.
adjourn. So moved. Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much.